Welcome to the Album Anniversary Podcast. Today's show is about Carrie and Lowell by Sufjan Stevens. I don't know if I pronounced any of that right. It was released March 31st, 2015, so it's celebrating a 10-year anniversary.
Spirit of my silence, I can hear you, but I'm afraid to be near you, and I don't know where to begin.
I'm your host, Caleb, or Caleb the Spy on social media, and every day on social media I post about what I call album anniversaries. So, on the Album Anniversary Podcast, we take a look at a classic album, an album we love, or an album that's important to us on the anniversary of its release date. Albums on the show do often focus on alternative rock, punk, and my strange obsession with ska. In the 90s, I was super into the Christian music scene, so that does come up often on the show. And today, I'm joined by Rob and Steven. Welcome back to the show, guys.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah, I'm super excited to be here again.
Yeah, I'm glad you guys are here. This was one that, Steven, you and I started planning this in like November, I think. We started talking about doing this episode, so I'm glad it's worked out and we're here and ready to do it. So you've both been on the show before, so I'm gonna skip the musical history of you guys. You guys, if you want to go hear that, go back and listen to the episode on Copeland, on Exoria. That's where Steven first joined me, and then Rob, what was it? Was it Catch for Us the Foxes?
That's right. The Me Without You record. Mm-hmm.
So you can go back and check those albums out if you want to get to know these guys better. So I think because we talked about it, so I know. I potentially pronounced his name wrong. So let somebody, Rob, how you pronounce her for us, what you think it is, and we'll start there.
I've heard it Sufjan Stevens. Yeah. Like that, like a soft Y sounding J.
Okay. Sufjan.
Yeah.
I'm sure you guys have heard like ridiculous pronunciations of his name. What's the worst you've heard that you can think of? Or if you have any run-ins with people in trying to pronounce his name?
I don't know about ones that I've heard from other people, but I know that he's gotten a lot of things over the years, and he even like had a tour one time called the Surf Jam Tour, just kind of joking with like ways that people have mispronounced his name. So
Surf Jam Tour, that's awesome. I've never heard
maybe
that.
the Surf Jam Festival or some show. I don't know exactly.
This is amazing.
But, yeah,
that's funny. I mean, I don't have I avoid saying my last name, to be honest, because I kind of want to keep my last name out of this stuff. But if you know me, so I'll say it for you guys, and then I'm just going to bleep it out. My last name is but if you read it, everybody reads it. And then with my weird first name, and I know it doesn't sound weird now, but when I was in school, it was a totally weird name. Like Caleb was not a common name. So I have this experience of being in school, and I'm the first S always, because of the way my last name is spelled. So I could see teachers getting to my name. I could see them working through the R's and the fear growing as they got to my name. And I think the last name would scare people, and then they would just freak out on the first name. So I would get Khalib. I got Cable a couple times. And then I would actually say my last name, and they would go, "Oh, it's Finnish." Like it was like this hit. It happened over and over again to the point where I could predict it happening. Mm-hmm. So I have a history of people mispronouncing my name, but that's Steven, your last name probably gets an occasional mispronunciation, I would assume.
Yeah, I mean, my last name's Getz, so I mean, it's a crazy Bavarian German last name, and I remember one of the first days in basic training, I was in the Air Force, and I remember my drill sergeant called my name and he said, "Trainee goats." And I'm like, oh no. So, I mean, when you're in there,
service.
yeah. And I was like, man, and you have to do a reporting statement when you're in basic training. So I'm like, "Sir, trainee Getz reports as ordered. Sir, it's Getz." And I was not ready for the fury that followed. And this drill sergeant looked at me. He's like, "Do I give a mother bleep and bleep what your last name is?" And I'm
wow.
8.5 weeks, I'm going to be called Trainee Goats. Here we go. But good thing he corrected it. But I definitely had times where I had to very carefully try to correct my last name, and it did not go well for me. So I should have just been called Training Goats. It would have been probably better for me. So
What
it's
is the
Goats.
protocol? I mean, you're supposed to just like go after something and say, "Sir, here, I just want to let you know this is the correct pronunciation of my name. I don't care how you pronounce it, though."
Yeah, I mean, it definitely, my drill instructor definitely said, gets afterwards and stuff,
Sure.
but there was other sergeants that were there that would just call me out and you have to respond. And sometimes it would probably have been better if I ignored. And I mean, but you're stressed and you want to have your name correct so I can hear myself because I
Yeah.
mean, they're calling Trendy Goats and I'm not answering. I mean, obviously I'm going to get yelled at even more. So, I mean, like, what are you going to do except for getting yelled at immediately and have to handle it? But it
And
was
what
good
if there is
times.
another guy with the last name Goats that's actually pronounced Goats? Then
I
there's too
mean,
much confusion going on.
maybe that unfortunate goat, maybe could have handled it, probably. So,
Interesting.
Yeah, I'm not gonna like share my full name either, but I have the joy of being ungoogleable. That's fantastic. So
Yeah.
a very normal, common.
Yeah.
There's many of
Absolutely.
us, so I'm cool with it.
Yeah. I'm definitely Googleable if you know my last name. So I've tried to keep it out of this. So my uncle, like, he just quit. He quit correcting people and eventually just switched his last name to the like to the pronunciation that we most often get, and he just started going by that. And it was like he gave up the fight, and I was like, oh, well, that's a way of doing it too, I guess. So awesome. Well, that was my intro to this episode and this album. Totally ridiculous for such a serious album. So with that out of the way, we'll jump in and tackle this album.
Nothing can be changed. The past is still the past. The bridge to nowhere. I should have wrote a letter. Explaining what I feel. That empty feeling. Don't back down. Concentrate on seeing the breakers in the bar. The neighbors greeting. My brother.
So before we jump in and tackle this album, I do want to give a little disclaimer about this record. It is at times a dark record, and there's commentary. If you listen to this record, he talks about a little bit of self-harm. He talks about some moments of just, I don't know, acting out or kind of acting dangerously at times. There's kind of themes of that kind of as he goes through grief. That is kind of a theme of this album off and on. So I did want to preface that. It may come up in our conversation, and just I wanted to have it out there. So if that's something that's going to be upsetting to you or triggering to you, just maybe this isn't the episode for you. But I did want to get it out there that this is at times a dark record, and it was and we'll get into it obviously in our discussion. So just want to have that out there. So that's my little disclaimer. It's also a record that has some moments of conversations about faith, so that might come up as well. And just my general stance on it when I'm talking music about it stuff is we're not going to fight about it. If somebody says, "Oh, I agree with this" or "I disagree with this," we're good with that. Kind of like how we do on the youth group show, because there's moments of it here on this album too. So I just want to have those disclaimers out there before we tackle this record, because you never know what you're going to get. So here we go. We're going to do Carrie and Lowell by, oh man, I'm already scared, Sufjan Stevens. Yay! I'm not an idiot. Well, I mostly am. Okay, so released March 31st, 2015. This was his 7th album, and it was produced by him and a couple other people. And I don't know, he's produced other of his records before, or is this one of his first?
I couldn't tell you, honestly.
Yeah, I know he worked with Daniel Smith previously, but I'm not too sure.
Okay. So one of the other producers on this is Thomas Bartlett. Bartlett. He goes by Doveman, and he gets a producer credit in a couple places. He's not again, I think this was mostly, Sufjan doing most of the producing, but Thomas, or Doveman, whatever you want to call him, he's worked with Yoko Ono, St. Vincent, Rufus Wainwright, Thomas Jones, and Florence and the Machine. So some pretty heavy hitters, especially people who kind of lean into that independent style at times. So not always, but there's some pop names there too. So he does that. There's a number of people who did work on it. There's some engineering credits who I also saw on one page get kind of producer credits. It's kind of a weird mix, but I think it looks like mostly Thomas Bartlett, again, knows as Dove Man, and then Sufjan were handling most of their production on this album. 2 singles from this album. One is No Shade in the Shadow of the Cross, and the other is Should Have Known Better, which I think is interesting because I think this is a hard album to pick out singles for. I'm not going to lie. And I'm trying to think, what does he put a single out? Like, where does that go? It's not going to most radio stations, but there's 2 singles from this album, which is interesting.
Yeah, it's hard to remove any track from this record and call it like a standalone single,
Yeah.
content wise and just, yeah, flow of the record. But
Yeah.
I would definitely say when I first heard No Shade of the Shadow of the Cross, I was like, this is going to be a much different record than his Illinois record. And I wasn't ready for how intense this record was going to be. So I would definitely agree. Like, I don't know how you would start, but I'm glad he started there because it
mm-hmm.
definitely gave a little nod to what direction he was going to go.
Yeah. Yeah, and it looks like that one was released in only February, so it wasn't even a huge run-up time. It was released like mid-February. Should Have Known Better was in March. And then actually it looks like one more too. Carrie and Lowell was also a single like almost the week before this came out. So, and I will say we have an independent kind of NPR record radio station here in the Twin Cities. I wonder if they got some play on there, but yeah, it's a very interesting thing to think about where this would have gone to get radio play, but there you go. So technically 3 singles. I know I said 2 before, but
Yeah, the short rollout's an interesting thing you said because like I feel like he's been very prolific over the past couple years, like lots and lots of content and albums and records with Lowell and records with the guys from the National and a lot of things. But at that point in his career, like it had been 5 years since the previous record, Age of Odds, and yeah, he was kind of just a bit more like mysterious and kind of a slow cooker, right? So like it had been 5 years. Age of Odds was 2010, and I think he officially released, a couple things in between. But yeah, I mean, it had been a while, so yeah, it kind of came out of nowhere a little bit. I mean, obviously dealing with a lot of grief, which he poured into this record in that time frame. But yeah,
yeah.
I didn't even realize I made a mistake right there. You probably could correct me on that one. I didn't realize the Age of Odds was right before here that album and
yeah, as far
not
as
the
like this
Illinois
like
record.
main studio records, yeah,
Right.
Age of Odds was 2010.
He had that All the Different People album too, right? Was that
Oh
after
yeah,
this, or
well
was
that's
that?
yeah. Where did that fall? I
I
don't
think
know.
that's technically an EP.
Well, let's talk about that for a second, because I mean, not to derail the Carrie and Lowell conversation, but so like that one is an EP, but it's like an hour long, and it's amazing. And then like Age of Odds is like what, like 74, 75 minutes long. So like he's got these huge, long, sprawling albums, and then he comes out with Carrie and Lowell, which is like 44 minutes long. It's very succinct. It's very
Okay.
simple. It's very stripped back. We'll get into that, but it's just a fascinating pivot.
Yeah, All the Different People came out in 2010 as well, in like August, which I think is actually before the Age of Odds ads. Yeah, because that came out in October. I am planning on doing a show on that album as well this year. So I'm doing 2 Sufjan albums this year.
It's 2010 when he did that.
Yeah.
What's it called? All the Delighted People album.
So looks like Silver and Gold came out between Age of Odds and Carrie and Lowell. But yeah. So yeah, 5 years. Wow. And then there was another 5 years before the Ascension. And then, yeah, he has kicked one out every couple of years since then. So upon its release, it did receive pretty much widespread critical success. I think a lot of people labeled it as one of his best. I can go through a couple of them here. The AV Club gave it an A. The Daily Telegraph, 5 out of 5. I can go on here. Guardian, 5 out of 5. NME, 9 out of 10. Pitchfork gave it 9.3 out of 10. So that's obviously high praise from them. And you never know what you're going to get with them, but super, super high praise on it. It came out. And then even like it made a lot of year-end lists, and it made a lot of decade-end lists. I even saw that. Like the Guardian gave it, it was one of the best 50 albums of 2015. The Guardian, it was their second best record. And then it was like on their list of the 100 best albums of the 21st century. And so I saw a lot of things like that where people were not just giving it like, what was it? The AV Club. It was their third best record of 2015 and their 15th best record of the 2010s. Lots of stuff like that. Let's see. Pitchfork was number 6 on their best records of 2015. And then it was in their 200. It was number 17 in their best records of the 2000s. So widespread acclaim for this album. Clearly this hit home with a lot of people. So really, really well praised upon its release.
I would say for me, I mean, like, not that I have a lot of credibility of like my favorite records but I mean, I've been doing my favorite records of the year every year. And this was my number 1 record that came out when it came out. But I would say this is in my top 3 favorite records of all time. And it took over Jimmy World Futures for me. And so like, I would say it kind of fluctuates between my top 3 favorite records I've ever listened to. So if that's any merit on your show, I mean, for me, this is a really important record for me.
It is merit because that's what I want. I want people to come on and talk about albums that they love. So yes, that's absolutely. Is this, Rob, does this rank that high for you, or is it just more of one of those important ones? Or have you defined your list?
It's a good question. So, I mean, I definitely have, my like cluster of like favorite albums. This is definitely probably my favorite Sufjan record.
Okay.
Which does probably put it high, probably somewhere in the top 20 albums of my favorites. But I like a lot of different music, so it's hard to say. Don't hold me to it. But I do. I love this record a ton.
You're allowed to change your list, and if you come back on the show and another one goes ahead of it, that's okay. We're not gonna pull up the files. I'm sure I say conflicting things all the time. Commercially, the album did very well as well. It peaked at number 10 on the U.S. Billboard 200. I think that's pretty good for mostly. I mean, he's still an indie artist. I mean, I can't think about him any other way. I know he's hit the mainstream. And he's collected quite the audience, but peaked at number 10 on the Billboard 200. That's pretty impressive. And then the only other fact I have is that 2 years later, he would go on and release a live album of this album, which I don't know. Okay, I'm getting the thumbs up that it was good. I have not listened to it, but I'm sure that was also an experience as well. So 2 years later, obviously, he must have toured, and I think it was from a show sometime in 2016. If I remember correctly. And so there you go. So that's another way to experience this record is the live version.
It's very good. It's very, very good. And the whole thing is up on YouTube also, the live concert, which is obviously has the visual element. But yeah, it takes a lot of these songs and like, I don't know, builds on them, reinterprets them, full bands them. It's really cool.
I got to see him actually in 2015 in May. So he actually did this whole show of Carrie and Lowell. And like, I mean, we'll talk about the album, but he didn't say a single thing when he did this whole show of just Carrie and Lowell. Like, he literally went through the whole album, and at the very end of it, he's like, okay, I can do a break. And then he told like a funny story. We could maybe talk about that funny story later or something, but it was like literally like he was sobbing through it, like crying. Like, you literally, like, I have never spent $50 more during the show. And that was the time I saw him in New Orleans at the Soroyan, I think it was called. I have to Sanger Theater in New Orleans.
Okay.
And it was just 44 minutes of just him, music, and just silence. I mean, it was just like nobody stood up, nobody moved. Like, it was just like the most. I mean, I will forever remember that show. Top 5 favorite shows I've ever seen. It was insane.
That's intense. Maybe we'll have to come back, and for a Patreon exclusive, we'll live stream us watching it and our live reactions to it. No, I kid. I don't know. I don't think anybody would want to listen to that.
We can still watch it together.
Yeah, exactly.
Just I'm down. Fun. If we start weeping uncontrollably, maybe then we can like actually like have those sound bites in there for sure.
All right, we're gonna cut to just crying for the next 3 minutes.
The strength of his arm, my lover caught me off guard. How, head of a rabbit, how, head of a rabbit, for my prayer has
All right. So our first question: how did you first discover this album?
So I'd already been a big fan of Sufjan for years. So I first discovered Sufjan through a friend of mine named Ricardo in high school. I graduated high school in 2006. Illinois came out in 2005, and I was big into like ska punk, like skater punk, like Vans Warped Tour compilations, Punkorama compilations, that type of stuff. And so like kind of like the indie softer music was like not really on my radar too much. But he was a good friend of mine and he's like, "You'll like this." So he gave me Illinois and and he was right. I liked it a lot. I mean, it was huge and I mean the orchestration, instrumentation was just, over the top. I mean, if you've heard that album, it's just so much going on all the time. It's like maximalism, all over the place. But also restraint in some parts. But anyway, it's not about that album. But yeah, so I've been following Sufjan for a while. Yeah, and just checking out everything he did along the way. I like his Christmas records a lot. Um, I liked Age of Odds. Not as much as Illinois, but still a cool record. And then, like I said, he was kind of mysterious around this time, a little bit aloof. And then suddenly these songs started coming out. Oh, these are different. These
Hmm.
are kind of more like, his earlier album, Seven Swans. These are kind of more folky, quieter, introspective, heavier. The content was clearly a lot. And then when the album title was announced, Carrie and Lowell, and you hear the backstory of why the album came to be or how it came to be and what's it about, it's like, oh, this is going to be something special.
Hmm.
And yeah, bought it as soon as it came out. Probably bought it on iTunes and then got the vinyl record soon thereafter and just been loving it ever since. And yeah, just dove headfirst into the lyrics. And one more thing I want to add, yeah, that time period when it came out, 2015, was like, um, I have both my parents are living,
Hmm.
but around that, it's a huge fear of mine, right? A very big fear of mine is death of a parent. I don't know where it comes from. I don't know if I had some childhood trauma that I just can't remember or whatever, but I'm always like concerned about my parents. And like that time, like the early to mid 2010s, there were so many albums from bands that I love that concern themselves with this topic. Me Without You's Pale Horses
Hmm.
talks a lot about the lead singer Aaron's father passing away. This record came out, of course, Carrie passing away. A band I really love called Lost in the Trees put out a record called A Church That Fits Our Needs about his mother passing away. And then I think a year or two after this one, Touche Amore put out Stage 4 about his mother passing away from cancer. So there was like this like block of albums that all came out in within a span of like 5 years that, the bands that I looked up to were at a point where their moms and dads were getting sick and dying. It's just like, geez, I can relate to this fear a lot. And we'll get into this more later with the content of the songs and the record, but
Hmm.
it helped me process some of those thoughts. And yeah, this album means a lot.
Hmm. So you were a fan before the record came out, and so you were kind of aware of it and looking for it. Steven, how about you?
And I always just get just rocked with how people like resonate with music. So thanks for sharing that, Robert. I think for me, in the same way, I've brought it up on several shows, but when I was working up at a Christian camp, I feel like it was a smorgasbord of all these people bringing out their MacBooks, and we could just share our iPods and we're sharing music with each other. And it's very similar in the same regard. I mean, an elder emo, as I said, and a lot of my scene at that time was very much the brand new Thrice's Manchester Orchestra, Me Without You during that time too. And I remember I was working with this girl. Her nickname was Comet. My nickname was Squirrel. But this girl Haley, she introduced me to the song Kashmir Pulaski Day, and I remember that was like the first time I heard a song that was just very tender in that way, that wasn't Christian music. And I was just like, this is different. Like talking about like that youth girl, but then also that she was sick. And then like, we prayed for you, you didn't get healed. And I was like, dude, this is just different than your contemporary Christian music
Mhm.
that was like maybe praise God, God's gonna heal you or do whatever. And it was more positive and it was a more like heavier. And I was like, this kind of resonated with my emo self, but then also it was that wrestle, and I really appreciated that. So I went backwards and I started listening to his Seven Swans album, and that one kind of was just such a cool record. I mean, I still say it. I mean, like that line that he said in the song, "The dress looks nice on you," and I feel like that's just such a nice compliment to say to my wife when she wears her summer dresses that I love. But also, I feel like that's just such a endearing song. And then I loved his stuff about the transfiguration and how he just saw things differently. And I was like, this isn't just typical Jesus music. There's a wrestle in that, and I appreciated when I saw that with Sufjan. And so I followed him. I'd never connected with Age of Odds. I loved his Christmas music. I mean, his Come Thou Fount version is probably one of my favorite Christmas music songs to listen to this season, which it doesn't even, maybe it's not even like a real Christmas song, but because Sufjan sings it, like for me, Christmas music doesn't start until Sufjan is on for vinyl. So like I will not listen to anything else first. It's always Sufjan first for Christmas music. And it's after Thanksgiving. We can argue about that, but like I'm not going to listen to Christmas music all year round. But Sufjan is always first. But I didn't connect to Age of Odds. I was kind of bummed about it. For me, it just didn't really connect with me. And then when I heard No Shade in the Shadow of the Cross, and I was at seminary school, just got out of the military, went through a visceral breakup, and that song really met me exactly where I was in New Orleans by myself. Nobody I knew there except for one guy that was homeschooled, and he was like my friend from a Bible study that I was in Florida with. And that song, I mean, we'll go into those lyrics too, but like, man, I was like, I feel heard, like I could hear him, and I felt like I was heard finally in my own chest and my heart when I was calling out to God and trying to figure out what was going on in my life.
Water on my head, and he called me Subaru. And now I wanna be near you. Since I was old enough to speak, I've said it with alarm. Some part of me was lost in your sleeve, where you hid your cigarettes. No, I'll never forget.
What is it that you love about this album?
Man, to start, I feel like when I listened to Carrie and Lowell for the first time, I felt like it was like listening or reading the Psalms and like reading just poetry and laments and songs that were very, very vulnerable and very meaningful for me at the time and meaningful me even today. And I think for me, it was just something that I didn't think that was fair to listen to. I felt like I was peeking into somebody's journal, or I was peeking into somebody's house where he was sitting in, or also sitting by a bedside with his mom dying. And I didn't think that was fair, and it wasn't right for me to listen to. But in that same thing, I think there's something special about like even the Book of Psalms or this record, is that there's that beauty in understanding and going through death and trying to understand death, and even mentions of Jesus in this album that brought a lot of healing in my life. And so what I love about this record, I mean, like, I feel like it's like that question that you see at the very end of Almost Famous, and where, you know, William like asked Russell, what do you love about music? And he's like, first off, everything. And I mean, that's it. This record is everything. Like it is just a really meaningful and special record to me.
Wow. Yeah. Stephen. Yeah, I can agree with so much of that. Mm. It is a very vulnerable peek into his life. Yeah. It almost makes you want to say, um, should I be listening to this? Like, how could he publicly release this? Not in a bad way, but like so raw. I mean, we've all listened to very personal albums, but this is on another level. The songs are so poetically beautiful that sometimes um, you hear it, and you can pick out certain lyrics or things that you can like latch onto, and you almost brush aside some of the other stuff that seems more like fluffy or filler. But then if you take the time to like dig into it, um, or like, talk to other Sufjan fans, or, go on genius.com and dig into the lyrics that way, or, read some interviews from him around that time. It's like every single line is just laced with intentionality
Mm.
and allusions and metaphors that are deeply personal and of a time and a place. Yeah, so it's an album that is, like Shrek says, it's an onion. It has layers, right?
Yeah.
Uh, just to bring a little levity right now to the conversation, it has
Yeah.
lots and lots of layers. You hear these songs, and I don't know, like it's not vague at all. It's very
No.
specific. It
Yeah.
is it is these little vignettes, these little stories from his childhood, these stories of being bedside with his dying mother, these people, these places, these memories. But like in those specifics, like obviously I'm not Sufjan, you're not Sufjan, but in the specifics, we can like step into his shoes and like kind of find our own humanity in his a
Hmm.
Hmm.
little bit, you know? Like we can have a more universal connection in the specifics.
Yeah.
I know vague music is boring. I don't know. Like, do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah. I think that's what makes feels that tension of should I be watching this or should I? And I say watching, and should I be listening to this? But like, I think that's when he gets that specific. That's why it you can do that because you can feel these moments because he does such a good job of storytelling in this, and it feels so like I use the phrase watching because this album feels so cinematic in the sense that like
Mhm.
when you think about a lot of great films, right, they go and they like films that use flashbacks really really well, like they because that's what this is, right? There's flashbacks to his youth, and then there's you mentioned it, then he's talking about these real emotions that he's having with his dying mother, and then he's talking about stuff that he's going through after she's died. And so like there is this movie nature to this album, and he goes back and forth. It doesn't like start with childhood, here's she dying, here's my grief. It's all intertwined, and so
Mm.
it takes you on this crazy journey where you really do feel like you're sitting with him as this documentary of this experience unfolds. I mean, it's a very very unique experience because it's not linear, and it just pulls from all these different places, and he lets you into some very very personal spaces. And I think that's what makes it work so well, and I think that's why so many people connected with it.
Yeah.
I was gonna say what I loved about how different it was from Age of Odds or Illinois is of how stripped it was. To
Yeah.
me, it was like, and it was even more different than Seven Swans, and the fact that it just felt like I was sitting in a room with him where he's figuring out these songs by himself
Hmm.
and in a guitar and just putting it together and or on an iPhone or whatever position that wherever Sufjan is, maybe he's in the clouds and he's got his cool butterfly wings like he does on stage. I don't know. But like I love that it felt like I was sitting in a room with him like watching this,
Hmm.
him
Mhm.
just trying to figure this out.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
then he put it out and it was like this is what you got. Like
Hmm.
you don't get that in records. I feel like a lot of records are very refined. It's a very beautiful record. It's a very like you said, like I feel like it's a very much of a like a score like that you would see from a pretty indie movie, but when you listen to it, it feels very personal with that kind of music in the
Yeah.
background, and it's a little bit
Mhm.
different that way.
Hmm.
Yeah, I mean, you said like sitting in a room where he's like figuring out these songs and like figuring himself out too, right?
Yeah.
Like in these songs, he's like changing position, almost not position,
Hmm.
but like changing his mind, and like his feelings are almost unknown to himself in a
Yeah.
lot of these songs. And he's really grieving and like wrestling with his relationship or lack of relationship with his mother.
Yeah.
And there's like a lot of regret and a lot of maybe frustration or anger, but at the end of it, still so much love and softness toward a woman that he kind of wishes he knew better.
Yeah.
And it's a fascinating I don't know what the word would be, but like
Look
just a
in look
fascinating,
into.
yeah, just a fascinating view into a
Hmm.
process that we all have to deal with death. We've all lost people close to us in our lives, and you know, he wishes he was closer to his mother, and he's kind of missing that relationship and the time that he wish he could have back. And I'm hearing that in real time is
Yeah.
heartbreaking, but beautiful for the rest of us.
Yeah. I think his choice of like how he approached the music on it too is good because he's gone in so many different places. Like he's pretty eclectic. He's got obviously he's got a lot of different interests when it comes to music, but it feels like he just made a lot of really good choices about like here's how I want to present this because the music yes it's an interesting dynamic, right? Because if you just listen to the music without the words or if you kind of tune the words out, you could think this is like light and airy and like, oh, hey, this is kind of fun or it's at least very like whimsical. And this isn't, but yet it still is like once you put those two together, I think it really really works in conveying these emotions. And that's what he's going through. Like he's dealing with these emotions and so it would be interesting to know like what came first, if it was the music or the words or like his songwriting process on this album has to be really really interesting because he's probably going like, oh, I want to tell this story and I want to relate it to this, and so here's some idea of what I want to say, and then there's a bunch of throwbacks to like ancient Greek mythology throughout this thing, and like his songwriting process on this album in particular just makes me kind of wonder like what it would be like to sit with him as he does this, because I can imagine it is quite the process as he puts this all together.
I imagine he has a book of birds open too, because this, along with many of his other albums, have a lot of bird references, especially this record. I started keeping tally, but
Oh, really?
I stopped. Like, this is ridiculous. I have to get on the Zoom call.
You're birding before your the studying of this record, making sure you can see all the birds and cross them off your list.
Ornithologists love him.
Ornithologist, give this a 9 out of 10.
Right.
That's awesome.
I think the last thing I'll say, I just think like it's a good point. Like I feel like when you listen to this record, it sounds like a springtime record, but I feel like this is very much a fall winter record for me when I listen to it. So this is for me, it's later in the year when I listen to this more often.
Yeah, that fits with the darkness. I mean, that does permeate this record. I think that fits with for a lot of us and how we feel in the winter here.
When did it come out again? What was the release date?
March 31st. So,
Oh,
so yeah.
yeah, that came out in spring, but yeah, that's interesting. Yeah, I agree with you, Stephen. Yeah, very leaves falling, days getting shorter and colder. It's got those vibes, sparseness.
Yeah.
It doesn't have a season when he recorded it, because that's the other thing is it's always fun. It's always interesting to me when people are like, oh, this is a summer record. And then you're like, oh, they recorded this in the winter. Okay. How's that work?
Right.
But this just says recorded in 2014. So
Yeah.
it's
Yeah,
there's no
I was looking at the
time.
Wikipedia. There's like 5 or 6 different studios listed, so he was
Yeah.
pulling things from all over and just, doing a little bit here, a little bit there, probably.
Yeah. He's all over the place. A lot in Oregon, some in Brooklyn. Yeah, he's all over.
Yeah.
Oh, in Wisconsin. Oh,
Yeah.
Eau Claire. Oh, wow.
Mhm.
I wonder if that's where.
It's the Bon Iver studio,
Okay.
April base.
That makes sense. My favorite Eau Claire joke. So it's Eau Claire, Wisconsin, but it's spelled EAU Claire. And there's a great Strong Bad email where he answers an email from Eau Claire, Wisconsin, and he answers it and he goes, "Ew, Claire, why?" And it's still one of my favorite references because I went to college in Menominee, which is 40 minutes from Eau Claire. And so we were over at Eau Claire's Campus Crusade folks. We spent a ton of time with all the folks, the other Christian groups at Eau Claire. So I'm very familiar with Eau Claire, Wisconsin.
What could I have said to raise you from the dead? Or could I be the sky on the 4th of July? Well, you do enough talk, my little hawk. Why do you cry? Tell me, what did you learn from the the Tillamook burn or the 4th of July. We're all gonna die.
Why is this album important to you?
Gosh, I hate to repeat myself, but yeah, I mean, we've
That's
talked.
gonna happen. That's I still am not sure. Some of these records, the questions don't work. It's like it's too hard to like not dissect them. So
Yeah.
yes, everybody, if we're repeating ourselves, it's just hang with us. We're that worthwhile listening to.
Yeah, I mean, like I mentioned earlier, I think, I wrestle with, you know, I have a pretty good and close relationship with both my parents, again, who I'm blessed are still living. Um, but I mean, just today, I was texting my mom because there's, measles outbreaks starting to pop up all over the place. And there's one here in my state, really nearby. And I'm like, Mom, keep an eye on this.
Yeah,
I don't know if you were back, my parents are older. Were you vaccinated? Were you not? Like, I don't know what happened, like, please be safe. Don't want to lose you, that kind of
yeah.
stuff. So that's a peek into my own psyche and fears and anxieties. But yeah, I mean, all those records I listed earlier kind of have helped me wrestle with some of those fears and, uh enjoying and helping me to enjoy um, my relationship with my parents and while being a parent
Hmm.
um, at the same time and treasure those times because who knows how long we have on this rock. So um, yeah, it's I have not seen Sufjan live, so I'm very jealous of what Stephen was sharing. That is a bucket list item for sure. With Sufjan's recent health issues and stuff, I don't know how if that'll ever happen, but I do
Hmm.
hope so. But yeah, watching the live performance of Carrie and Lowell live was I mean it's like literally like a church service. Like his backdrop is like these panes of like look like stained glass almost, and it's very um intentional and spiritual. Exactly. Yes, that's it. Um the wrestling, the spiritual and familial wrestling that he goes through is just very, very relatable.
Yeah.
I think what I love about Sufjan is that, or especially about this record, I feel like it takes time to get when he actually names drops Jesus in one of the last songs on the record. And I think that's like something that's special. I feel like, listening to sometimes contemporary Christian music, I feel like sometimes songs are put in there just so they could drop a Jesus lyric in there or trying to make it a more Christian album. And what I love about Sufjan throughout this record, there isn't that. And there's this wrestle and this anxiety. And I feel like one thing, I mean, I struggle with anxiety sometimes. Um, and I'm grateful to listen to a record of where you can listen to it and wrestle with Sufjan about
Hmm.
those fleeting life and the struggles of death or trying to be hopeful. And you have a song. I mean, when we talk about songs, I guess I'll talk more about that there too. But John, my beloved, what I love about that, I didn't even realize that he's saying Jesus at that. That's who he's mentioning as the title,
Hmm.
and when you listen to that song, like he finally says Jesus in that. And I love that because he got to that culmination of just crying out finally.
Hmm.
And I feel like sometimes in my own life and my anxieties and things, I wrestle through a lot of crap of just, death in family members. I've lost family members to cancer. I feel like I need to say this kindly. My father-in-law is going through some stuff right now. And when I get to that point, when I cry out Jesus, something is cathartic about that. And I can
Hmm.
listen to Sufjan and I can listen to a song from him and I can cry out that. And I feel genuine. It doesn't feel like it's just a, a word that you put in there just to make a record. And that's what I love about this record a lot too.
Yeah. Yeah. I think some of the ways he processes that grief, like there's not like he, I think he tries to be hopeful, but yet he's also struggling with this, like, Rob, you're talking about it, where like he's not happy about how this relationship went. and how it ended. And he doesn't end with some sort of like, and then it all worked out and we were all good. Like it doesn't end that way. He doesn't get to that. I think he kind of is okay having that be out there, that sometimes these things don't go the way you want them to, and that's okay.
Mm-hmm.
And we move forward and we try and be better. But like it may not, this relationship, you may have this relationship that doesn't end the way you want it. And we're all, he says it, we're all going to die. Like it's on the record. I think that's one of the reasons that it may be connected with so many people, and the reason that it holds up is that it doesn't try and just gloss over it. And I think people at some point hit a spot where they don't want to, just like, you always do want to hear, oh, it's going to be okay, it's going to be okay. But like the reality is that at some point all of us are going to hear some bad news. It is just the way it's going to happen. And what happens when you hear that bad news? And I think he's fairly honest about it in this album. And I think that really resonates with people, and it makes it something that, again, I just think stands the test of time and just doesn't feel like other records where you kind of end on this, it's all going to be okay note. It's like, no, it may not be. But here's what we're going to do. And, here's how we're going to try and move forward. So,
yeah. Can I share a quote from
Yeah.
a Pitchfork interview that he did, around the time of the release of the record? In researching for this, I was rereading that, and it's just stuck out to me, and I wanted to make sure it's included because I think it's a powerful view into the record and his writing of it.
Yeah.
He said, "I've always had a strange relationship to the mythology of Carrie because I have such few lived memories of my experience with her. There's such a discrepancy between my time and relationship with her and my desire to know her and be with her. It was so terrifying to encounter death and have to reconcile that and express love for someone so unfamiliar. Her death was so devastating to me because of the vacancy within me. I was trying to gather as much as I could of her in my mind, my memory, my recollections, but I have nothing." So I think that just puts a lot of this into context.
Yeah.
And wonders, Perseus aligned with a skull, slain Medusa, Pegasus, a light from us all. Do I care if I survive this? Bury the dead where they're found, in a veil of great surprises. I wonder, did you love me yet?
We'll move on to songs, and I know this is particularly a tough album to call out favorites. So if we end up just going through the track list, that's perfectly fine as well. So yeah, I get it. But what are some of the songs that need to be called out on this album?
I think the song that really first going through it, my first one, I mean, I mentioned it a little bit, but John, My Beloved meant a lot to me when I was struggling at seminary school and struggling just trying to figure out life and going through that kind of visceral breakup. And like I said, I think I just feel like I just love that he's like, beloved of John, I've got you all wrong or whatever, or I get it all wrong. I read you for some kind of poem. And I just feel like dude, it's just like, it's just so honest. And I feel like we said, sometimes I feel like I'm repetitive in this, but there's just such the beauty of how him just trying to figure things out. And in this song, for me, I just feel like it's a very much of a Davidic psalm, what he's saying, and then there is that little bit of the what's it called? Greek mythology that's thrown in there, Icarus, and then all of a sudden, I just love even where like he's even using Judas, just the kiss on the cheek, but then he's just like, Jesus be near, and I just really appreciate this song. That's one that I just really, for me, that's always something that I'll go back to.
Yeah. I think the album ends strong. Like those last songs, John, My Beloved, No Shade in the Shadow of the Cross, which is, was the single, obviously. Actually, even Carrie and Lowell before John, My Beloved, and then Blue Buckets of Gold. I think that those last four work really well as a closing to the album. And again, Blue Buckets of Gold, it's another, we've talked about a lot of albums recently where like it's not a crazy long instrumental. It's not like a, you know, Clarity's 11-minute or 16-minute or whatever it is. And then I had another album recently we talked about, but like there is this long instrumental part of it. Like he gets done with the words, and then there's this instrumental part, and that kind of hangs in there. And so again, I think it ends really strong, and I think John My Beloved is a good segue into those next two songs as well. Like it's not just a cool, introspective, interesting song, but it this is why this is a hard album to talk about without about like this is my favorite song, because it works so well in the context of those other ones as well.
It's funny you mentioned the outro to Blue Bucket of Gold because, again, the Carrie and Lowell live record, which I listen to a lot, probably almost as much as the
Hmm.
studio album, is that there's a track, Blue Bucket of Gold, and then the next track is Blue Bucket of Gold outro, which is 13 minutes long.
Sheesh.
It's amazing.
Yeah.
And he throws the whole kitchen sink in there.
Yeah, that seems fitting for him. I'm actually surprised that he showed the restraint to not do that. Like he could have done it, but I'm wondering if, I mean, the vinyl probably plays a part in that, because you with vinyl you can really only do about 44 to 45 minutes. I mean, 45 is even pushing it. So I wonder if there was a reason that he had to do that to make the vinyl work. But I'm actually kind of surprised that on the album version it isn't a 13 17-minute song or something.
I
So yeah.
love that there's like two ways to listen to it though,
Yeah,
because
that's
like they
great.
both exist, and one is like, yeah, the live experience, which, Steven got to experience, and we get to enjoy the release of it. But there's also just the kind of more intimate, personal, simple version
Yeah.
also. So if you want to go bombastic and, have you can for some of that stuff, but don't have to.
Yeah. Yeah.
For me, I would say again, I love Fourth of July just for the lyrics and just the conversation. I feel like that's probably the most difficult song to get through,
Hmm.
just because of just I feel like that's like the where I should be sitting in a waiting room with Sufjan, maybe with his mom when she's dying, and just the callbacks to. I mean, I'm sure you guys love lyrics just as much as I do, but it's like I feel like it hit me harder yesterday when I was listening to it and I was in my truck, just kind of like processing like maybe what I would say or what. And I just like, after I listened to that song, I just played it over again and I just didn't say anything while listening to it. I just let Sufjan speak to me. And I mean, I was crying in my truck. Like,
Hmm.
I mean, just the different ways of him like wanting to like the firefly and calling his mom a firefly and just seeing the fireworks and something that she could be near to the light, and then her responding as a bird, which was like really sweet. And then like, did you not get enough love, my little dove? Why do you cry? I'm sorry I
Hmm.
left, but it was for the best, though it never felt right, my little Versailles. And it's just like, I mean, we can even go in like history of what like the like Versailles is, but like I don't know how you write that stuff, dude. Like, or how do you even? I wish I could write like that. Like, those are the things that I'm just so touched that Sufjan has that gift to say things that I wish I could say. And talking about like what's it called? Such a funny thought to wrap you in cloth. Do you find it all right, my dragonfly? And even just like the dragonfly, just the chaos of what dragonflies are. There's not like a sitting in it, and then like just having a wrapper in a cloth of just putting her in silence. It's just I don't know. It's just so intimate, and it's just I feel like I could just go deep, really deep into that. I don't want to just bore everyone, but like just the very end of just that acceptance that we're all gonna die, and that just is like so heartbreaking because we want to live, or live our life to the fullest, I would hope, or hope that we would make a dent. And then it's just that acceptance of like that existential that there is an ending to this story.
Hmm. Yeah.
Yeah, that song is definitely one of the emotional crux of the record, right? I mean, it's
Yeah.
placed directly in the middle. It's 11 track record. You got five songs on one side, five on the other, and then like this linchpin track in the middle that I
Yep.
think is, yeah, a literal center point, an emotional center point. Again, a lot of bird references, and it all leads to here. And I mean, I joke, but like it's also very intentional, very serious. I mean, a lot of his albums reference a lot of different kinds of birds, and yeah, I mean, this conversation with his mother is just powerful,
Heartbreaking, I think, is another word that I think of.
heartbreaking, very much
Yeah.
so.
Yeah. That song's interesting because it almost feels like an acceptance. Like, he ends it, we're all gonna die, we're all gonna die. But then the next song feels like the opposite of that. Because like that song is the one where that's where he starts talking about self-harm and stuff. And like I was reading something that was he wanted to try and relate to his mom. And so that's how he was like kind of he's like, I wanted to drink a lot and do drugs, because that's how I felt like maybe I could connect with my mom after she
Hmm.
was gone. And so it's like, which feels like the opposite of accepting it. Like it just, so it's again, it's really interesting the way he does. I do think the 4th of July is the emotional center of the album in a lot of ways. And it's just interesting that like on either side of it is the song that's kind of about a stepfather, and then it's about like kind of accepting that his mom is going to die and we're all going to die, and then it's like this inability to relate to his mom kind of flowing through those three songs. It's to me it's interesting. Even that dynamic of like on either side is the song about the stepfather, the song about his mother. I mean, they're all about his mother in a lot of ways, but like so yeah, I agree that song, and I think 4th of July has the most. I'll be honest, on this album, there are moments where I'm listening and I'm like, what song is this? Because these do have a bit of a, they can run together a little because they are so sonically. There's a sonic similarity in a lot of these that goes through them, but the 4th of July is the one that feels like has a lot of these quotable moments from it. Like there's a lot of little lyrical flares that do come out in that album in that song as well. So that's the one that kind of stands out in a lot of ways for me, is just because of those little lyrical moments.
I want to talk about Should Have Known Better, the
Yes.
second track. I love this song a lot. I love John My Beloved a lot. I love 4th of July a lot, but Should Have Known Better, yeah, holds a special place to me. I like the structure of it
Yep.
musically. I really love that kind of angelic, like ghostly choir, kind of like backing up his vocals in the song. It's such a highlight. They're very like ethereal. It's like I don't know. It's like Carrie's ghost is like haunting the record, but like beautifully.
Yeah.
And then like halfway through the song, almost like literally halfway through the song, it like makes a turn and it kind of like gets that little uplift, like musically. It gets a little more major sounding. And in that at that point, like he starts singing the stuff about like my brother had a daughter, the
Yep.
beauty that she brings, illumination, right? He's like channeling like this new life, this new hope in this new, female family member.
Hmm.
Um, and it's really cool. I just love the writing and the way the music works with the lyrics to tell that story as well.
Yeah. I agree. I think it really goes really well hand in hand with Death with Dignity. Like there are real strong opening to the album. Like they very much set the mood. They very much set the tone. You get to see him, you know, it sets the tone about how he's going to go into this complicated relationship. He's not, he kind of sets the tone for that. And then I think both of those songs set the tone musically as well. Like you talk about it, you get some of the angelic moments, but you also get those major moments. You get his guitar playing is just this like it's this picking, this quietness to it. It's very much him. Like when I hear his guitar playing, I'm like, oh, I know who that is, because it's just
Mhm.
so representative of who he is. So you get some of that. I mean, it feels like in these first two songs, you get this statement about where we're going, what we're doing, and how we're going to get there. And it's a pretty amazing the way he uses those two. I think they're two really strong. There's also his vocal performance in those. I think are both really really strong. You can really hear him, which is really really unique to those first two songs as well.
Yeah, it really sets the musical palette that he's going to be playing with for this record in those
Yeah.
first two songs. Because we have heard Michigan and Illinois and Age of Odds, and they're so much going on there, and they're so long, and there's so much historical references and
Yeah.
storytelling, and this town and this person, and there's just so much research that goes into those records. And then to enter this album, and again with a 40 some minute runtime, and these songs that are the opposite of the Age of Odds, that's electronic flair and a lot of intense stuff going on. And then you start this record off with Death with Dignity, with just that light finger picking, and his this lilting melody that rises and falls, and then the piano comes in, and it's so stunning in its simplicity. It's like this man can do anything.
Yeah.
So talented.
Yeah.
I mean, it's so hard for me to pick a song because I just love this album cohesively as a whole. It's
Yep.
so hard to just say single songs. While processing, while you guys are saying, I want to go back to No Shade of the Shadow of the Cross. It wasn't my favorite initially, just because I wasn't ready.
Hmm.
As I've listened as more growing up with this album, it's so crazy to think that this album's almost 10 years. Or yeah, at the end of this month. That's so
It
nuts.
will be. Yeah.
What I love about the very end when he talks about Casper the Ghost, like I just feel like that was so left field for me in a song that's talking about like the cross too, but like my assassin, like Casper the Ghost. And it's like, but I've tried to understand there's the kindness of who God is to Sufjan through this, but there isn't shade in that cross and just that like tension point. I just feel like it's just like that writing is brilliant. And also I just uh My Blue Bucket of Gold is just a very comforting song to me.
Hmm.
Just knowing just the I just feel like so much of our life, some of the things that we try to do is just trying to find that blue bucket of gold. Like I don't know if you guys have your favorite action figure of when you were a kid. I still have my 1989 Batman action figure that I have still that's out of the box that my dad gave me when that movie came out when
Hmm.
and I still have it and it still means a lot to me, you know, but I feel like Sufjan at the very end of that song has this blue bucket of gold and that's all he's got. Like that just that precious thing that maybe can bring back to when he was with his mom, maybe playing in the sandbox, or he was showing her, this is my riches that I have. This is all I've got. And then he shoots it back to like, you know, Lord, touch with me with lightning, or raise my right hand, or raise the red flag. Like I just feel like there's just so much of just that. This is all I can offer in this life is just this blue bucket of gold.
Hmm.
And I feel like that's all we need to bring of just ourselves, of just what we could go through in life, of just to bring the best we can. And I feel like that's what Sufjan did on this record for us. And I'm very appreciative that he brought that maybe for his mom, or maybe he brought that for us as listeners, or who future people listen to. But like there's just that beauty in that. And I'm just a very, if Sufjan, if you're listening, thank you for bringing your blue bucket of gold, because this record means a lot to me. So I appreciate that.
Wow. Well, if he's still listening, that'd be a pretty good get for my little podcast. Uh,
Can I touch on one more song real quick?
yes.
It's a short song, and I only want to mention it shortly, but it's one of my favorites. Is Eugene,
Yeah.
city in Oregon. So first, I guess I'll just say that like obviously, the story of Sufjan, going to visit, Carrie and Lowell in the summertime of his early childhood. The a lot of people, make fun of or like joke about Sufjan's like 50 states projects, right?
Yeah.
About like he made the Michigan record, he made the Illinois record, said, oh no, that was just a gimmick. But like this is very much an Oregon record, and there's a
Hmm.
lot of references to Oregon places, Oregon history,
Yep.
Oregon state bird. I know I mentioned birds a lot. People are going to think I'm crazy, but there's a lot of bird stuff on this record. But yeah, the Eugene song it's a short song. I think it's the shortest on the record, but it's so so sweet. That's the song with like where he's taking swimming lessons and the guy doesn't know how to pronounce his name and he calls him Subaru, and
Yeah.
just little glimpses into his relationship with Carrie and with Lowell, and childhood memories of being in Eugene, his summers there. He sings in this falsetto a lot of the time, and it's just so poignant. He just wants his mom's attention, both like in the past and in the present. And again, I just want to highlight that one. Again, we could talk about every single song, but
Yeah.
I don't want that one to be overlooked because I don't know, it frequently is, and I just want to give it a little shine.
Yeah. And it is a really Oregon record. Like even the Blue Bucket of Gold apparently is some Oregon myth. Like it's a very like I had never heard that phrase, but apparently it's a very Oregon reference. Like there's a myth about the blue bucket of gold is some treasure that people go looking for in Oregon or something like that. So like it's a very, very Oregon record.
Interesting. I know I mentioned Tillamook and I got excited for the cheese because that's like my favorite cheese, but like I don't, we're not going to talk about cheese.
We could.
Even the opening track, Death with Dignity. I learned this today. The Death with Dignity Act was an important act that was passed in Oregon to allow people to, pass on their own terms or something like that. I probably got that wrong. But again, more Oregon, more history.
Yeah.
Wow.
Titling the song that I wouldn't have ever known had I not been on this podcast. So thank you, Caleb.
I forced you to do research.
Yes.
I was slaving away.
Cottage Grove shade, invite me. I will bow down. I love man, Lord of the ancient waters. From the backyard, as far as she went, Carrie surprised me. Erebus on my back, my lucky charm.
Our final question. So somebody hasn't checked this album out, and I think there is the possibility, right? Like he is not everybody, even though this got to number 10, I don't think everybody is willing, and I think he is a tough sell at some point. Like if you get into a Sufjan record and you're not sure what you're expecting, he can be a tough sell. But somebody 10 years later, why would you tell them, hey, go back and check this album out?
Because if I'm talking to you, that means you're a human. And if you're a human, that means you have to deal with death at some point. And this is a great record to take an honest look in the mirror and having a soundtrack that can help you think about those things in a way that is not pretentious and also not just like surface level. I said, what can't this man do? And like I stand by that statement. I mean, like his whole discography is interesting, but yeah, you go into many of his other albums and you're gonna get, 5 to 10 different facets of folk rock, indie rock, electronic music. I mean, he's got even a little rap album somewhere, I think.
Yep.
Or like he was part of a little rap group for a while. So, I mean, you can explore any side of Sufjan, but I think this one, while it might be like the heaviest and hard to wade through, it's so rewarding.
Yep.
And in that I think it's the most relatable. So yeah, it's worth listening to.
Yeah.
I think, I mean, I said it a little bit earlier. I think sometimes when you listen to some Christian music, I think sometimes there's scapegoats or there's those songs, and maybe artists don't mean it genuinely, but I feel like sometimes songs come across easy to go through, or you can listen to it and maybe it might make you feel good for a second. It might be kind of like cupcakes, and it's that good taste, and it'll be enjoyable for that minute. And maybe after you listen to it a while, you might get a tummy ache. But I feel like when you're sitting down with Sufjan, you're having a full on meal with wine, and it's going to be like an Italian dinner. You're not going to just get one wine glass. You're going to get a couple more wine glasses, and not saying to get drunk right here, but like enjoy the experience. And I feel like Sufjan gives us that opportunity to do it. And I think honestly, this is most accessible record because of it musically. I think Illinois is maybe a little hard for some people to hear because it is very loud and bombastic, kind of like what you said, Robert. And sometimes I think that kind of could throw people off. I think Age of Oz is kind of a little bit hard too, just because it's the electronic stuff. But when you listen to Carrie and Lowell, there's a beauty in it. And I think that is a great way to be able to see how talented he is, but then also it's worth sitting through. And I think, again, what you were saying, like, I really agree. Like, I think there's just something special to be able to go through this record and really enjoy it. And I just think that this record is just very beautiful, and it's very just honest, and it's very just tender. And to me, this is the record I want to listen to when I'm feeling these kind of things, when I kind of get into that existential, when I kind of like forget things. It's like the Book of Psalms when I'm struggling or going through anxieties in my life and things that I'm struggling with. I could go back to this record and I could kind of reset. And I feel like Sufjan kind of does that well.
Yeah.
And I think you should listen to the record for this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's very grounding. I really like the way you said that, Stephen. Yeah.
Yeah.
Grounding. Thanks for that. That's the right word.
I think you guys kind of nailed it. Like it is, I think it is his most accessible album. Part of it is the length of it too, like the fact that it isn't 75 minutes. Like it is a normal album length, and there's nothing harsh on it in the terms of musically. So it is very accessible from that, but then it is worth the listen. And it's an album that if you just do a little bit of, okay, I know this is about his complicated relationship with his mother. You don't have to do all the crazy deep digging. You'll catch enough to really get it. And so all of a sudden it has this weight and this worthwhileness. So I think it's an interesting dynamic that if you talk about like most artists, their most accessible record is not usually their deepest record as well. It's usually something that is accessible. You can easily wade into it. Where that's what's so unique about this album, I think, is it's not only his most accessible because of kind of some of the parameters that got put around it, but it also is this one that pays off so well. And it pays off so well, and it has such deep meanings to it. So I think it's an amazing combination of those two things. Like the idea that, oh, this is accessible yet also weighty and complex is really, really unique. And again, I think if you're willing to sit with it a little because of that cinematic nature, you really can get to live this experience. And so like, I think that's something that can be really rewarding about this album as well.
Just that it's not like an everyday record. I mean, it is worth sitting down and listening to it, but you need to be ready to listen to it. It's not something I'm just putting on willy-nilly necessarily. And it's not background music because especially once you get to like 4th of July and it's like we're all gonna die. You're like, wait, oh no. You know,
Yeah.
it's you might need the right headspace, you might need the right
Yeah.
time and place to commit to it. But
Yeah.
I'd say it would be a great vinyl record to listen to. Just put it on vinyl, maybe a couple candles in the room, and just dim the lights a little bit. Maybe a little small dram of whiskey, and just sit with it. Be worth it.
Yeah. And I think it is one that can help you be introspective, even if it's not going to answer all your questions. Like,
Yeah.
it's going to ask a lot of questions and it doesn't necessarily answer them all. And so like, it can be one of those, I think, albums to like, push you and push you to be introspective about things. Like it is like I think I was trying to, when I first was approaching this, I was trying to use it as background noise. Cause I'll be honest, a lot of my music listening is background noise because I work full time and I have 4 kids and like, I don't often just get to sit with a record. So I finally kind of had to do that with this one because I was like, all right, I think I really need to sit and go line by line with the lyrics, and like that did enhance the experience. But it was like it was something I was able to enjoy and kind of wade into a little, and then like do that deep dive and really really take it all in.
Can we contend peacefully before my history ends? Jesus, I need you, be near me, come shield me from fossils that fall on my head. There's only a shadow of me in a matter of speaking, I'm dead.
That is our breakdown of Carrie and Lowell by Sufjan Stevens, again released March 31st, 2015, celebrating a 10-year anniversary. Rob and Steven, where can people find you online?
Yeah, I'm at Steven versus T-Rex on Twitter or X or whatever you like to call that.
Okay.
I post about music and all those fun things, and you can find me there.
Awesome. And Rob, how about you? I know sadly we've lost you on Twitter. I'm sorry. I'm bummed you're gone, but people still can find you in at least a couple other places.
yeah, Well, I said I'm ungoogleable, and I'll leave it at that. No. No, find me in the woods enjoying the trees and the birds. And now I'm on Blue Sky, I guess, but I'm trying to lower my social media
Intake.
footprint and
Yeah.
intake and all the rest. So,
Yep.
just give me a call if you got my number, give me a text or reach out to me somehow or send a carrier pigeon. I don't know.
You do have though a worthwhile archive that's worth looking. I know it's not about this band, but what's the archive that you run?
Sure. Since you mentioned it,
Yes.
yeah, I do run the Me Without You archive. So I've collected and edited and tried to tweak and upscale and beautify. I think there's 50 some odd live shows from Me Without You's career, spanning their entire career from 2001-ish all the way up till their farewell year in 2022. So if you like Me Without You or want to like Me Without You, like download a live show because that's where they really shined is in the live experience.
And what's the easiest place or easiest way for somebody to find that or get connected to that?
I guess through Blue Sky. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Just search Me Without You archive.
Okay.
Links on there.
There you go. So if you're, and that's why you were on the previous album. The one you were on before was Catch Roast the Foxes. So you can definitely learn more about your connection to Me Without You. And Steven, you're coming back soon. I think we're doing Gaslight Anthem this summer. So that's the plan. You, AJ, and I think are going to tackle a Gaslight Anthem album if we can make the schedule work. So yeah, I'm super happy to have you guys on the show. I know this is a dark album, and so I know this is usually this is probably one of the more somber conversations we've had on the show, but I appreciate the introspection. I appreciate the closer look at this album. I'm glad I got to take a closer look. I'm not a huge Sufjan guy, to be totally honest. So for me, this is always records like this that come up that somebody says, "Hey, I want to do a show on that." It's always good for me. It's a challenge to kind of take a closer look at an album. Doing this podcast alone has expanded my music I take in because I need to take a deeper dive into stuff. So I appreciate this getting on the calendar, and I appreciate you guys both coming on and joining me to talk about this album.
Thanks for the time, Caleb.
Yeah, great hanging out with you guys.
Yeah.
Vow to give in. I search for the capsule I lost. Drag me to hell in the valley of the dead. Like my mother, give wings to a stone. It's only the shadow of a cross.
Thanks for listening to this episode of the Album Anniversary Podcast. I want to say thanks again to Rob and Steven for joining me to talk about this album. It was great to have them on the show. Great to talk to them. Obviously, this is a deep record. It's an intense record. It's an album that means a lot to a lot of people. So it was great to get their insights and their thoughts on this album. Let us know what you thought. What do we get right? What do we get wrong? What are your favorites from this album? You can find me on social media. I'm on Twitter, Caleb the Spy. I'm on Instagram, Caleb the Spy. I'm on Blue Sky, Caleb the Spy, and you can also email me, calebthespypodcasts@gmail.com. The one place I'm not Caleb the Spy, that it's actually the Album Anniversary Podcast, because I probably should have branded this that way from the beginning. All of this podcast stuff is on Patreon. Please go check it out. It's all free. I'm just trying to kind of create another space. Again, I do extra stuff there. I'm trying to keep it pretty regularly, but just I do some extra stuff there. I did some stuff about the CCM Twitter that happened earlier in this year. I might actually watch some of the live set of this, maybe as a special thing. Trying to think of other fun things to do. I do a little show called Go Talk to Your Internet Friends, where I literally just kind of a random topic, grab some people, just randomly talk about it, an hour real quick. So join me on Patreon. Those don't hit the regular feed. Those are only on Patreon, stuff like that. So please join me there. Again, it's the Album Anniversary Podcast, totally free. Just got to sign up. So if you already have a Patreon for something else, you can just join mine, and there's extra content to be had there, and just a kind of a place to connect. I'm going to start sending out messages there, just a place to join, kind of engage with the community a little better. Just, we lost Rob to on Twitter. Social media can be a little fickle, and so want a place that's kind of a special place to call my own. That's enough talking about that. Please subscribe and share the podcast. Leave a rating or review. Those are super helpful for podcasts. If you enjoy this show, you might also enjoy the other podcast I do with my friend Scott. It's called I Survived Youth Group in the 90s. It's not just a podcast where we reminisce about our youth and our youth group experience, but we're trying to interview fellow 90s and 2000s youth group kids and just kind of hear where they're at now. Whether you've left the faith entirely, you're still at the same church you were raised at, we want to hear your story, how that youth group experience has impacted your life, good or bad. We want to hear your story. Thanks again for listening, and we'll talk to you soon.
Raise your right hand. Tell me you want me in your life, or raise your red flag. Just when I want you in my life.
Okay. All right. I'll do my intro. See how badly I butcher this. I should really be good at this since I've done this like 78, 80 times now, you'd think.
I've listened to enough of your podcast. I might be able to. No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah, I am not
You got a trumpet back there?
surprised. That'd be pretty funny, actually. Okay. All right. 3, 2, 1. Go to intro music. Did I get that right? Is it Carrie and Lowell and Sufjan? I always worry
Yeah.
every time I say his name.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like anytime I say his name, I'm like, I want to make sure I'm saying it right. So I think you're good.
Subaru. That's the joke
Subaru.
from the album.
Yeah.
I think it's more of a Y sound. Not to correct you, but I think it's Sufjan.
Sufjan. Okay.
Sufjan. Yeah, I
There
think
we
it's
go.
a
I'll get
kind
to
of a
it
more
then
Y
when I.
sound.
That's a perfect intro into my question. All right, let's do the rest of my intro here. So, 3, 2, 1.
I don't know if you want to keep this. I feel like this is just a fun fact, and this is me kind of geeking out a little bit. So, this last summer, I went to Savannah, Georgia, and I went to Fort Pulaski. And if you've listened to Sufjan Stevens, there's a song on his Illinois album that's called Kashmir Pulaski Day. And I went to Fort Pulaski. Fort Pulaski is actually named out of this, what's it called? Polish general that fought for us during the Revolutionary War. And so this fort was named after this guy. And then there's a actual Kashmir Pulaski Day in Chicago, Illinois. And that's named after this guy. And when Benjamin Franklin found this Polish general who was like an amazing horse fighter, like cavalry, like knew how to fight in cavalry, and brought him over for Poland to help us fight against the British. And then that's why they honored him. And so he died in the Battle of Savannah, but they tributed it to the fort in Savannah, Georgia. And so it was like so cool, like just like seeing all these things come together, because like I had no idea what Kashmir Pulaski was. Like I thought it was just him being with his names and stuff, but I don't know if that's a fun fact enough, but it was very cool geeking out about that. And I was like, I'm listening to this song for the rest of the day while I am touring around Fort Pulaski right now. So, yeah.
Awesome. That's great. I'm gonna go right to the next question, or next to the question, just because we're at a half hour, so and that's fine. Don't stop talking. Amazingly, Illinois, also released in 2005, so I could do it. I could cover that. It's on July 4th this year. All of his records are released on Jeepers. He's got the Ascension too. He's got 4 records that I could do anniversaries on this year. 5 if you count the EPs. 6.
It's the year of Sufjan.
Jeepers. I'm not going
Caleb.
to. I'm doing one other one. I got to skip Illinois because somebody claimed Age of Odds last year. They were like, hey, can I do a show on this next year if you do it? I was like, okie dokie. Let's do it. So we planned on that one. So you're not the first person to claim a Sufjan album, Stephen. Somebody else claimed one last.
I was excited, but I was going to relinquish it if somebody loved it more than me. So
No. All right. The other thing I would add, what was I going to add to? Brains working. Nope, they're not working.